Good afternoon, Pinnacle family. This is Scott Willis over at Theorist Search, and I have been asked by the Education Committee to give a quick class on marketing with an MPC. And for those of you that are old school like me, this certainly isn't a new concept, but definitely worth revisiting, especially in the markets we're in right now. I mean, we're experiencing a once-in-a-generation moment in our history with COVID. Landing a new job from a client in this market can be exceptionally challenging, and not to mention most recruiters coming off the markets we've been in have become lazy in their business development and have relied too much on call-in job orders from our existing client relationships. So it's time to get back to the basics, and what I'd like to do today is just go through how I market with an MPC, and hopefully you'll pick up some gold nuggets along the way. Probably the quickest and most effective way to make a placement in this kind of market is through marketing with an MPC. And if you don't know what MPC stands for, first off, shame on you, but I will enlighten you. It stands for Most Placeable Candidate. Now, what makes an MPC? An MPC, in my mind, is an A player in your particular industry. It's the kind of candidate that when a hiring manager looks at it, they're like, wow, yeah, we could always find room for somebody like this. Not to mention, it's the kind of candidate you want to put your name behind, your reputation behind. It is your calling card in the market and can build you immediate reputation with your clients by being associated with this individual. Second, they have a skill that's in demand, especially in this market. If it's not the kind of skill that's making an impact to a company's bottom line, they're probably not going to be looking to hire that. So you want to find somebody that would be considered high demand for your particular niche market. You also want somebody that has realistic expectations. It does no good to go out there and market a candidate to hiring managers and have zero chance of placing them with a client. So you need to find somebody that has a realistic expectation about what they're marketable for, their salary, their location. Here's a great example. If you've got somebody who wants to be in a remote location in the Midwest, say Indiana, and they're a biotech candidate, I mean, the industry's in Boston, it's in San Francisco. You got no chance of finding a candidate in the biotechnology industry in Timbuktu, Indiana. So you've got to find somebody that has a realistic expectation around the location. The next thing is you need to find a candidate that you can market to at least 50 companies. I mean, that number is not set in stone, but that's for me personally. If I'm going to dedicate a couple of days to doing nothing but finding this candidate a job, I want to be able to have, 40, 50, 60 companies to reach out to, because that's about how many days it will take me, 1 or 2 days, to get through that number of calls. You also want somebody that's available to interview over the next 30 days. Again, does you no good to take a candidate out there to market, line up some interviews, and have a candidate that's not open to doing that. If it's not the right moment in time for them, then set them aside and come back to them later. You want somebody that's ready to make a move right now. And then lastly, you want somebody that's going to work closely with you during the process. The example I always give my candidates is, I'm your sports agent. I want you to look at me like your sports agent. I'm going to go out to the market and I'm going to act like I'm your agent, because that's what I am. And I'm going to be networking and trying to find you companies to interview with. The worst thing that we could do is for me to knock on these doors and line up some potential clients who are interested, and I can't get a hold of you to get permission to send a resume, which I will never do. I'll never send a resume unless my candidates give me approval to do so. So I need them to commit that they'll work with me through this process. And my commitment, or what I ask from them, I should say, in a commitment, is that if I reach out to you and I don't reach you live and I leave a voicemail or an email, and you'll get back in touch with me within 24 hours. And if they can't commit to that, then I'm moving on. I'm going to find somebody else. Because again, I'm putting my name and reputation behind that individual. So after you've defined or identified that MPC, what's next? So for me, it's 4 steps. First off, as I mentioned, I'm going to develop a marketing plan targeting those 50, 60 companies. I'm going to build it into my planner. We use Salesforce here at Theorist Search. I'm going to build it into my plan, and I'm going to be able to rock and roll that one call after another after another. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to develop a marketing pitch that I can use in that presentation. And I'll share with you in just a second an example of that. But what that's going to look like is it's going to have some facts about the candidate. It's going to have a significant accomplishment that will catch the eye of a potential hiring manager. And it will have benefits of what that candidate can do to their company. And then the third piece is I make calls. Once I have all this put together, I make calls with a laser focus of finding that NPC a job. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to block out 2 or 3 hours in the morning. Maybe I block out the entire day. I'm just going to pound the phone, finding a job for this candidate. And then once I've gone through that roll-up list, kind of a twist that I've added with technology is I'll go to LinkedIn. I will pull back down that roll-up list, and I will build a list in LinkedIn of those 40, 50, 60 companies, and I will blast to them through Recruiter and LinkedIn. And the message oftentimes will change a bit. I might add an additional significant accomplishment or some other benefits to potentially hiring this candidate, but I'll do a slightly altered message to try to set the hook a second time with that particular hiring manager. So goals of an NPC call. There's 4 of them. First and foremost, you want to place that person, that candidate. That should be your number one goal, but that doesn't always happen, obviously. The second thing your goal would be, if you can't place them, is to pick up a job order. For example, maybe you call in and what the hiring manager is looking for is different than what you've got. Well, if you can use that NPC to set the hook on another job order, then that's a win, especially in this market. Getting a fresh job order with a new company is hard to come by. Or you could pick up what they call an alternate job order. Maybe you talk to Susie over in engineering, and she says, hey, I don't have any openings, but Bobby over in quality does. Here's his number. You should call him. And you follow that lead and pick up an alternate job order. I do that quite frequently with these kinds of calls. The third goal should be is if you can't place them, you can't get a job order from them, is to forward the hiring manager some information on you and your firm that will build some credibility maybe for future search assignments. And what I'd like to do here real quick, bear with me, is I'm going to share with you what that looks like for me. I've created this, and I have found that this is it generally gets a pretty good reaction from my clients. So I put this together. Basically, it's got an ugly picture of myself, a quick summary of my firm, myself, what I do. I put in there a couple of testimonials from hiring managers or HR personnel in the industry. And then if you keep scrolling down, I put in a list of some recent searches and some subject matters that I feel I'm an expert in. And then at the very bottom, obviously my contact information for future reference. And my experience has been that when you send that, it comes back later. They'll call you, hey, you sent me some information on you, I saved it, we got this new search. So at a minimum, I want to leave something behind that could bear me some fruit down the road. And if I can't even do that, if they won't share with me their email address, and some managers won't, I want to try to at least draw from them or that conversation a gold nugget that I can capture in my notes in my database for future calls to make that call maybe a little bit warmer. Maybe it's a future need or a strategic initiative they're getting ready to go through that you can bring up in a future call. Maybe it's a name of a person in another organization that they're friends with, or maybe within their own company or in another division off-site that I can network with that might have a need. Or possibly even just some information about them. Where'd they go to college? Are they married? Their son plays football. My son plays football. I've got a connecting point here. I try to come up with something that will, again, make that second call down the road a bit of a warmer call. So what I would like to do real quickly is just share with you my NPC presentation, or a sample of one I recently ran with. So bear with me for a second. All right, so here is my NPC presentation. I'll read this to you very quickly. Hello, my name is Scott Willis. I'm with Theris Search. I bring over 20 years of recruiting experience in biotech manufacturing, and am a member of the Pinnacle Society, a consortium of 75 of the top recruiters in North America. I want to take a quick second and introduce to you a higher performer I'm working with from one of your competitors that's looking for a new opportunity. She brings 10 years experience to the industry, serving as a process engineer, working extensively with cell culture operations. One of her more significant accomplishments includes leading a continuous improvement initiative that streamlines steps in the process, increasing throughput by 35%. She brings a Bachelor of Science degree in chemical engineering from Purdue and targeting move to your area. I would welcome an opportunity to set up a conversation between the two of you to discuss how she can replicate this type of success in your organization. Her calendar is free on Tuesday from 2 to 4 or Wednesday from 3 to 5. What works best for you? And again, I have found that that can be a very effective marketing pitch. And again, there's millions of theories out there. The whole FAB and FAB format that I know Next Level Exchange and MRI and other organizations have sold in the past. Mine's just a bit of a modified version of that. And let me just share with you as we wrap up just a quick proof source of this working for me on my desk. So I was recently marketing a young lady who was a chemical engineer, actually worked for a tire manufacturer dealing with rubber, but she was a minority female engineer and was targeting a search to return back to St. Louis, where she's from, and just had some amazing experiences in her background that I thought I could sell to some of my clients. Now, I ran a little bit broader than biotech because St. Louis isn't huge for that. So I ran biotech, pharma, chemical, consumer products, and I ran her. And I ran her for 2 days, about 45 companies I called into. And on my second day, I had left a voicemail with a hiring a director of engineering on her background. And he in turn had forwarded that to the hiring or the HR manager, who gave me a call probably 2 or 3 days later and said, "Hey, you left this message. I'd really be interested in taking a look at her. We've got a job working on." So I took the job order, called the candidate up, we sent it over to him, and literally within 5 days we had her placed. They didn't even bother the phone interview. They just had her come in because she was about 4 hours away, lined up an on-site interview with the team, and they made an offer the next day and she accepted. So from start to finish, probably 8 to 9 days from initial contact to placement, 6 days. And man, it doesn't get any better than that. Now that doesn't happen all the time, but in times like we're in right now, if you can turn a marketing pitch of 50 calls into a placement, and that one was about 22,000 on the deal, it's worth the effort you put into it. So hopefully this adds some value to your desk. Hopefully I've given you a gold nugget that you're not currently doing that you could do. And certainly if anybody has any questions they want to follow up with me down the road and pick my brain more on MPC, and give me a call. I love it. I do this all the time. My office number, 317-431-6961. Hope everyone's staying safe during this crazy time, and happy hunting, and hopefully we'll see you guys in Savannah. Take care.